What's going on, guys? It's Evan again. Sorry, I've been having technical difficulties with my streaming system. The last couple of times we tried to post a podcast or even just like record it, it eventually cut out. I'm going to try this one more time, and if I end up cutting out again, I'm just going to delete it again, and then Spencer and I are going to have to look it over and see what could be causing it. I got a new microphone out and a new cord and all these other things. And we'll try to see if we can get it to work this time. This is the Keepin podcast. Your boy Evan. We're doing a post-fight UFC 239 post-fight analysis. Going to talk about what happened on the card. It's actually one of the best cards of the year. We'll talk about those fights, break some of it down, and then talk about what's coming up in the future. Great night of fights. It was actually one of the better cards of this year so far. I know we're almost, I would say we're about almost 3/4 of the way into the year, but this is one of the better fight cards. It really was. We'll start with the early prelims. As I was saying earlier, there's a handful of fighters on this card that were going to make it on my list of up-and-coming, like, high-level prospects. And I was, in particular, one of the first fighters that I wanted to talk about was the young kid there, Duradayev, I think is his last name. He had a tough fight with Chance Roundcounter. I think it's how you say his name. Roundcounter. But Duradayev looked impressive in his first fight in the UFC, and he's really young. I want to say he's like 21, around that age. Yeah, Ismail Duradayev, a really high-level kickboxer, really crisp striking technique when he's not tired. It seems to me like part of the reason why he lost this fight is because he gassed out. But Chance Roundcounter took him down and kind of controlled him, beat him down, and Ishmael has really high kicks. He caught Roundcounter with some kicks that did some damage, but Roundcounter was able to get through. At some point, I want to get to making an episode where I break down, I'll gather a few up-and-coming prospects and talk about what I like about them and if I think they can make a run in their specific weight class. Ismail Duradayev is on the cusp of kind of making that cut. Like, his first fight in the UFC, he looked great. He came out against Chance Roundcounter, who I don't see to be any more than probably a journeyman fighter. Shout out to Anton, journeyman fighter. And he got taken down and controlled, and you have to be well-rounded now in this game, and you can strike all you want, and that's it. You can wrestle all you want, and that's it. And we'll get to that a little bit later, because that's something at some point I want to talk about. But yeah, Ismail Duradayev, I'm going to have to see him fight a little bit more. When I first watched him fight, he looked like a guy that can make some noise. But especially in this weight class, if he's not going to be able to stop takedowns, he's not going to go very far. He lost the decision to Roundcounter. We'll see where he goes from here. I mean, that division's so stacked and so deep. Who knows who's going to fight next? He'll probably fight another, like, can guy somewhere around his level. But the next fight I want to talk about is someone that's actually going to be, I'm going to talk about probably more when I make that episode, is Edmen Shahbazyan. This kid's... He looks like when he talks, he's like the sweetest kid in the world. He's 21 years old, Edmen Shahbazyan, but he's nasty. Really crisp boxing, good grappling, really good takedowns, good takedown defense, big and strong for this division. He fought Jack Marshman from Wales, and Marshman's a tough fighter. I would say Marshman, he's only 29. He's got some upside. Marshman's a decent rounded fighter, and he's fought some good guys, and Shahbazyan went in there, mixed it up with him, landed a bunch of really nice shots on him and took him down, beat him down. It was really impressive. The only caveat that I have with Edmen Shahbazyan is he trains with Edmond Tarverdian as his head coach. And we've seen in the past that Edmond Tarverdian isn't really a good mixed martial arts coach. I mean, no one would know Edmond Tarverdian, if we're being honest here, unless Ronda Rousey was his, student. But you see how her career went. She never really developed any skills outside of her grappling. None of his other fighters have been really all that good. I mean, I'm sure he helped coach Carl Prescian, who was good for a while until he had his issues and things of that nature. But Travis Brown never got any better over than he moved to his camp. I just think if this Edmund Shabazian kid, he's only 21, but I'd like to see what happens if he gets with a real camp. He's ultra talented. He's well-rounded. I'd like to see him with a real camp. I mean, training for that Edmund Taverdian, it's not the best head coach to have by any means. But big win for Edmund Shabazian. I mean, I don't say a lot of people are thinking he's the truth. I wouldn't give him a top 10 guy. I mean, if you found the right matchup for him, maybe a guy around that 15 spot. He looks really, really good. High fight IQ. He picks his shots really well. He doesn't really take a lot of damage, and he looked good against Jack Marshman. And Marshman's been fighting tough against really good guys. So I think the sky's the limit for Shabazian. I really do. I think he's a really, really solid pick to be a high level up and coming prospect. And moving on to the early prelims, here's a guy that's a bona fide candidate for making that list, that aforementioned list. Song Yudong. Song Yudong is a beast. Song Yudong, I don't remember where he's from. I want to say he's either Korean or Chinese. But Song Yudong took on Alejandro Turbo Perez, and I picked Song Yudong to win this fight, and he went out and he won it in really crazy fashion, knocking Perez out with a crazy right hand. Let's see here. Again, another fighter who's only 21 years old. Song Yudong. He's from Heilongjiang. I don't know if that's China or if it's Korea. He looks Korean, but he's been knocking everybody out, and ferociously. Who else did he fight? He fought Morales a little while back. Hey, what's going on, man? And knocked him out. Or no, he won a decision. I don't think he knocked him out. He won a decision, but he won it decisively. But he came out of here against Alejandro Perez and just knocked him into oblivion. It was pretty bad. Yudong's very heavy-handed. He's ultra fast and athletic. We haven't really got to see how well-rounded he is. He's 14-4. 2-0 in the UFC, but in a division, in my opinion, that's not really all that deep as everyone thinks it is at bantamweight. I think he's going to spark some life to the bantamweight division if he keeps going on a run. The only problem I have with Song Yudong is there's definitely some deficiencies in his actual technique as far as striking. When he throws his strikes, he throws a lot of looping strikes. I mean, they come fast, so he makes up for it. And he also, his position, the way he positions his head and the way he throws things, he's never really guarding his head when he throws attacks. If he comes up against a really good counter striker that actually knows how to punch, he's going to have himself a fight on his hands. His explosiveness and his speed helps make up for his technical deficiencies. He's one of those guys, he kind of just dips his head forward and flails all over the place when he throws punches. You could get away with that more at 135 pounds because not a lot of dudes at 135 pounds hit hard enough to put you away. But this kid's got if this kid is one of those kids that connects, even at 135 pounds, he's hitting you and you're going down. So he looked great against Perez. I'd like to see him get another big fight. It says he's ranked now number 13th in the bantamweight division. That just shows you how shallow it is. He's only had 2 fights in the UFC. So yeah, another guy who I would probably have on that list. When I do the list, I plan on breaking these guys down further, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out. Definitely a guy to watch. He knocked this dude out. It was brutal. A brutal right hand. It only took him 2 minutes to take out a guy. Alejandro Perez is a really tough guy, a rounded guy. He's never been knocked out. I don't think he's ever been finished. So big shout out to Song Yudong. All he needs to do is come up with a awesome nickname like Stun Gun, like his Korean counterparts. The Korean guys, if they come up with nicknames, they always have good nicknames. So Song Yudong needs to come out with a good nickname. Let's see what else we have. The only thing I don't like about this website is it when you try to back out from a fighter's profile, it jolts you all the way back to the beginning, and you got to click a bunch of different buttons. And now, Claudia Gadelha versus Ronda Marcos. I did not see this fight. I actually did not see this fight. Hey, what up, Ton? Yeah, I don't know what's going on with it. Maybe I hit the wrong buttons or something. I'm not really sure, but hopefully it just sticks. I mean, I didn't plan on doing a long episode, so. But yeah, Claudia Gadelha versus Ronda Marcos. Ronda Marcos is a tough fighter. In my opinion, she's not overtly skilled. She can grapple a little bit, can wrestle, grew up grappling, but Claudia Gadelha is in this weird position. It's kind of like the way Uriah Faber was and the way Junior Dos Santos is sometimes. Kind of like an Alexander Gustafsson, where Claudia Gadelha has the skills to pretty much beat any girl in her division, but for some reason she can't keep her streak alive enough to vie again for the title shot. She looked, when I watched the highlights, she looked good against Ronda Marcos, and it's to be expected. Claudia Gadelha's probably got, I would say, her striking for this division, she's like a B- striker compared to a lot of girls in the division. She's not a super skilled striker, but she's better than most girls, and she's fast and explosive and powerful. She puts combinations together. She has a gas tank, so she comes forward. Just the amount of flurries that she puts on girls is enough for them to back up and be like, oh, fuck. But where her real strength lies is her grappling. Most girls in the division, she could take down and beat up on the ground and submit, and the girls that she hasn't been able to beat are the girls who have been able to throw it off those takedowns. I honestly think as long as she decides to keep fighting, Gadelha will be a contender in this division for as long as she wants to keep fighting. She's one of the more well-rounded women at 135 pounds. Which is weird. I don't know how Ronda Marcos got this fight. I'd have to go look at her record, but the women's strawweight division is actually one of my favorite divisions. It's deep. Now, I know it brings us to another thing. A lot of people don't like to watch the women fight. I love watching the women fight. I like watching all fights. Fighting's my favorite sport. And for me, I love watching the women fight, particularly in this division. Strawweight has the most talent from top to bottom. And I think that's because that's where on average you find most women to be. Most athletic in shape women tend to be around that mark or can make that weight easier. That's about the average size of women, you know, that 5'2", 5'3", up to like 5'5" range. That's why I think the most talent, it's similar to how most of the talent in the men's divisions are at 155, like 145 up to 170. Because most guys naturally fall into that range of weight. Like even if you're 190 pounds, you can make 170. Once you jump up to middleweight, there's dudes that are heavy, that are like the size of heavyweights that can make middleweight. I mean, Rockhold was making middleweight, and he supposedly walks around at 230. And we'll get to Rockhold later, but Claudia Gadelha, really good fighter. Really like her. I think, like I said, I think she'll have more success in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if she vies for a title again, depending on how things shake up in this division. The next fight is Marlon Vera versus Noelin, I think his name is, Hernandez. Now, I was impressed by Hernandez. He's a young up-and-coming fighter, and he fought his ass off against Marlon Chito Vera. Vera is a well-rounded fighter. I mean, a lot of people are high on him. I'm not as high on Marlon Vera as everyone else is. He looks like he's like 40, but he's younger than I am. I think he's like 25. Marlon Vera can fight. He's tough as nails. He works hard. He has a decent gas tank. His strength is his grappling, and obviously he got a second round submission of Noelin Hernandez, but I think he lacks the athleticism and the striking prowess to contend at this division. Upper echelon guys in this division tend to be pretty athletic and very well-rounded. I think this is at 135 or 145 pounds. Joe Rogan talks about Marlon Vera all the time, but I think it has to do with I think he trains with Eddie. Yeah, this is at bantamweight. Like I can't see I can't see Marlon Vera contending with the upper echelon of the bantamweight division. He's 13-5. I think he looks like he could probably fight at 45. He's a big boy at that weight class, but also that's another point of contention with me is, in my opinion, yes, the weight cutting thing and having the size advantage is an advantage, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're more skilled or stronger than an opponent just because you're bigger. So, I mean, he could probably move up if he doesn't find the success that he wants, but I'm not as high on Vera as everybody else is, but he looked good against a guy who's not as experienced as him and Noel and Hernandez. Hernandez fought his ass off. He actually had his moments in the fight, made it really tough for Marlon Vera, but eventually Vera obviously took him down, got the submission. On to the next fight. Arnold Allen versus Gilbert Melendez. I was extremely impressed with Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen can fight, and it's funny because his name, Arnold Allen, the way he looks, he just looks unassuming. Like, he looks like your everyday guy. He looks like he's an accountant somewhere. Like if you threw a pair of glasses at him, like he's doing cybersecurity somewhere or something. But Arnold Allen, man, really, really good gas tank, crisp boxing technique, dude. He's setting all kinds of combinations right off the end of his jab. He has a really nice jab. He was like eating Gil's body up all day, snapping off jab, double jab. Every time Gilbert Melendez would close in, he would just pop a double jab, uppercut to the chest, into the stomach. They did a lot of good hooks to the body. I mean, but at the same time, I mean, Gilbert Melendez is one of actually my favorite fighters when I was younger. He's almost like 40 now. He just looked slow. He looked almost 40. I never thought Gilbert Melendez was that skilled of a fighter. I just thought he was really good at what he did, which was, I always thought he had decent defense, good boxing, awkward boxing. He could close the distance and get in on you, good grappling. And Gilbert Melendez, is a champion, a world champion in two other, organizations from the past. I mean, he's when you talk about 155 pounders, especially in the more modern era, you have to talk about Gilbert Melendez. I mean, his body of work, he's beaten some of the best fighters in the world, but I just think this fight really showed that he probably needs to stop fighting. That's just my opinion. But yeah, Arnold Allen, he's another guy that I might consider breaking down further, talking about him on my prospect watch, because Arnold Allen looked absolutely fantastic. And this fight was at featherweight. Arnold Allen's young. He could probably grow more. He'll probably end up being... He's a big boy at featherweight. He'll probably be a 55er eventually. And I like the trajectory of Arnold Allen. I think he looks like the type of guy that needs to get a little crazy and get a little bit of an attitude or something, because he just looks like a guy that won't sell outside of his fighting ability. But yeah, I learned a lot from this fight. I learned how good Arnold Allen was, and then I think that Gilbert Melendez probably needs to hang it up and not go the BJ Penn route. BJ Penn's lost he's lost like his last 8 fights. I don't even want to talk about BJ Penn. And we'll hop to the main card, which was one of the better main cards as far as like, not only when you look at this main card, you're like, damn, this main card's good, but the action, it lived up to it. Starting with Diego Sanchez versus Michael Chiesa. Diego Sanchez is fun at all, but I never was a fan of Diego Sanchez. He's given us some crazy moments like the Clay Guida fight and some of these other fights, but Diego Sanchez is one of those guys that beat people with his wrestling and his power and his determination and stuff like that. But Michael Chiesa, if Michael Chiesa could get that gas tank sheared up, I think Michael Chiesa could be... I know a lot of people hate him because of the shit with Conor McGregor, and he was like, oh, I'm going to sue and all this stuff, but Michael Chiesa, how he ever made 155 pounds is fucking beyond me. Because Michael Chiesa is a big boy. He was huge. He was like double the size of Diego Sanchez in that fight. Now, granted, Diego Sanchez is not a welterweight. The only reason why Diego Sanchez is probably fighting at welterweight is because he's sick of making 155, because he's old as dirt himself. But Chiesa just grapple fuck Sanchez. Took him down, controlled him the whole fight like a little child, and just effortlessly moved from transition to transition over and over and over again, just holding him down. Chiesa does need to improve on his striking. His defense isn't good. He's not scared to trade shots with guys, and I think he has decent technique on a lot of his strikes. He just has to actually... I think he has to have a little more confidence in his strikes and sure up the skills, because Chiesa uses his strikes just so he can get in on you, cause enough havoc so he can get in on a leg or get in on a body lock. He doesn't really use his striking, although he comes forward with, it looks to me like, serious intent on hurting you. He's not tactfully really using his striking. He's just like bang, 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 falls into, his body. He likes the body lock, push you up against the fence. He likes to get in on a leg, take you down. But Chiesa, if he could sure up his striking and his gas tank, I think he's going to make noise at 170 pounds. He was fucking big, man. He was huge. Guys are going to have a hard time beating Chiesa. If you can't keep Michael Chiesa off you, you're not going to beat Michael Chiesa. I think when he gets up to the really, really, like the top three guys, like the Tyron Woodleys and the Kamaru Usmans and guys like that, those guys are just as good as grappling as him, and they're bigger. He's pretty big, but those two guys are bigger than him. I mean, he's longer and taller than Woodley, but I don't think he's stronger than Woodley. He'll struggle up there, but for right now, in the time being, I mean, he's probably going to be ranked at welterweight after this, maybe in like the top 15 to top 10 range. I'd probably like closer up to the top 15. He's going to make some noise. There's a lot of guys he could do. What he did to Diego Sanchez, there's a lot of other guys in that division that he could do that to. Let's just see if he could keep it together and stop sitting around trying to sue people and shit. By the way, Diego Sanchez is another guy that probably needs to retire. I mean, I don't know how much he's getting paid. I know with the Adidas pay scale, you get paid more if you're a fucking dinosaur. But, I mean, he tries his hardest to put on exciting fights. I mean, I think it's all he's really trying to do. He knows he's not going to be a champion, so. And then this one was just disappointing, but at the same time, I don't know if I should expect anything less anymore at this point with Luke Rockhold. But Rockhold goes out there, like I was alluding to earlier about guys being 185 pounds but being heavyweights. Rockhold was absolutely fucking huge. He's huge at 205. He's scary huge. He was way bigger than Jan Blachowicz. I don't know if that's how you say his name, Blachowicz. But again, cocky Rockhold, this dude ain't on my level, laid back, thinking it's no big joke and all this other stuff. And Rockhold at one point was regarded as one of the most skilled fighters in all of MMA. And when he was young, coming up at the Strikeforce, he beat Jacare, took the belt. I think people really thought, like, this is the next middleweight. And then he went on a great middleweight, and he went on to fight Chris Weidman at the time. A buddy of mine were talking about how we firmly believed that him and Chris Weidman at the time when they fought were the two best middleweights in the world. I truly believe that. And I'm not as high on... After a while, I started to fall off the Chris Weidman train because I thought that Chris Weidman had hit his ceiling. I picked Weidman to beat Anderson Silva the first time because I thought he could take him down and hold him there. But he ended up going on and knocking him out. But after that, I just noticed that, like, that's Weidman's ceiling. Weidman has already hit his ceiling. Luke Rockhold, grappling's a fucking 10. His offensive striking is like in the upper echelon range, like a 9. The only criticism I have of his offensive striking is he doesn't throw enough combinations. He relies on his speed and his power to just throw 1 and 2 punch combinations and then snipe you with his fucking bone-crushing leg kicks and body kicks and head kicks, which is worked his whole career for the most part. The problem is his striking defense is so fucking bad. He's been knocked out by left hooks the last 3 times he's fought. You would think if you got knocked out by a left hook, you would see, man, I got to stop holding my fucking hands down because dude's just coming in and landing that lead strike on me. He just fights with his hands down. It's so annoying. Not a lot of guys can do that. Conor McGregor is an exception. Lyoto Machida is an exception. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, they're the exception. You should be fucking around this weight class when these dudes hit so fucking hard. I really don't know how much the psychology plays into it. He literally thinks a lot of times when he goes into these fights, he's just dismissive. This guy's not on my level. This guy's not this. This guy's not that. And, like, you have to be confident in all these other things, but I say all this stuff because Luke Rockhold, I love Luke Rockhold as a fighter, man. I really think there's no excuse for him to be on a 3-fight win streak. There's literally no excuse. Honestly, if he had some striking defense, he would probably be the best middleweight on the planet. I don't know if outside things are distracting him, if he just doesn't have the will to fight anymore. People don't know he's been fighting for a while. I would love to see Luke Rockhold get it together. That's why I think one of the matches to make after this is Luke Rockhold, Weidman 2. Weidman's had some struggles lately. We know Luke Rockhold's had some struggles lately. I think they need to run that one back at 205 and see which dog has more fight left in him, because they're both in their mid-30s now. I want to say Weidman's 32, 33, and Rockhold's 34. And Weidman and Rockhold both saying, oh, we can go up 205 and win the title. I mean, Jones would smoke both of them. But I would like to see Rockhold versus Weidman too. As for Jan Blachowicz, I mean, you got to give it to Blachowicz. He's you know who he reminds me of? It's funny because Nate said this. I don't know if he said it because he looks like it. He goes, he's the Polish Stipe. Blachowicz is the Polish Stipe Miocic. I don't know if he was talking about their fighting styles or the way they look. Definitely the way they look, but I'm not going to lie. Their fighting styles are kind of similar too. Blachowicz is better on the ground. He's got a multitude of submission wins, and he can control guys really well on the ground, but they're meat and potatoes kind of fighters. Like, when they're on their feet, their defense is good enough to where they can get inside and they just bang it out with dudes. Blachowicz was just like, waded through all these power. He was taking some serious kicks from Luke Rockhold. He took 2 to the body that would drop most dudes, but he hung in tough and eventually just put it on Rockhold. He clipped Rockhold with a head kick at the very end, but people thought it was the head kick to hurt Rockhold. He landed a really nice left hook, which eventually was the punch that went on to finish him. During the end of the round, he landed a left hook and then stepped back and threw a leg kick. The left hook stunned him. That's what really hurt him bad. He was slipping during the leg kick and it very glanced him. That could have well hurt him too. But Rockhold was fucking done going in the second round. Blachowicz smelled blood and just crawled all over and beat his ass up. And that knockout was brutal, by the way. Hit him with a left hook right across his chin. And when Rockhold gets knocked out, dude, he gets knocked out hard. Rockhold's been knocked out. The 3 knockouts he's had recently, dude, they were really hard. Not only are they hard, no one looks like they're being knocked out worse than Rockhold. His eyes get huge. His cheeks blow up like you used to do when you were a kid when you're like going to someone. His cheeks blow up. His mouthpiece puckers out, dude. He just gets put through the ringer when dudes knock him out. Like when Bisping knocked him out, that was brutal. But yeah, so I mean, Dana thinks he should retire. He's been knocked out bad a couple times. I don't know if he should retire just yet. I think he needs to do some, like, how would you say, people say on the street, soul searching. He needs to, I mean, supposedly he makes a lot of money outside of fighting with his model and all this other bullshit he does. So, I mean, could he walk away from fighting? Probably. He's probably got other avenues to make money. He could be in movies and shit. He's a good-looking guy. But I'm just bummed out because I feel as though that when he was in his prime, when he's fighting to the best of his ability, he could beat any man at 185 pounds. Any man. So, I mean, hopefully he can get it together if he decides to keep fighting. He's one of those guys where he's definitely like a bro and a cornball sometimes. And he cuts like cheesy, cringeworthy interviews a lot, but I still like him as a fighter. I love watching him fight. Back in the day, dude, he used to just overwhelm dudes, plant that shin bone into dudes' livers and head kicks, take dudes down, fucking just strangle them. His grappling's just high level. Train out of the AKA gym, how could it not be when you train with Daniel Cormier, Cain Velasquez, and Khabib Nurmagomedov all day? It's just a shame. But yeah, good job for Jan Blachowicz. I mean, Blachowicz, that's the thing that sticks, is like, I don't see Blachowicz really making a lot of noise after this. I mean, he just beat one of the best dudes at 205. He's going to get thrown to a really good guy now. I mean, good for Blachowicz. Let's see if he can make something. Now, the next fight was the people's fight. Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren. I got to say, like, this knockout could potentially be the greatest knockout in the history of the UFC. It might be the greatest knockout in the history of the UFC. I watched a top 25 knockouts of all time, UFC knockouts of all time recently, and number one was when Chris Weidman knocked out Anderson Silva. If that's number one, like, I get it, the stigma around Anderson Silva, no one can knock him out, and then Weidman put him out because Anderson Silva was fucking around. But if you look at the lead up to this, all the shit talking in, like, I was watching Chael Sonnen talk about how Jorge always had his hands down, and he's so right. The most interesting part about this is how he had his hands down behind his back in the cage. I don't know if that is the trickery that led into him landing that knee. It very well could be, but everything, the shit talk, everything that led up into this fight, you got people that don't like Ben Askren. He's been talking shit for years and hasn't really beat. Like, let's be real here. If we're going to be 100% honest, Ben Askren hasn't beat anybody. Ben Askren, up until he got to the UFC, you've seen the grappling skills there, but, like, he didn't beat anybody. Can anyone name who he beat? I can only name, like, two guys that he beat. He beat Jay Haran, and then he beat some dude from the Eastern Bloc, I think, that actually took him down in that fight too. But outside of that, you can't name a high-level fighter he beat. And then leading up into the Robbie Lawler fight, there's the dispute with the Robbie Lawler fight. That was a freaking knockdown fucking brawl, but Robbie Lawler slamming on his head, him surviving, then eventually getting freaking almost put to sleep and then getting Robbie by the neck. Now, I've watched it a bajillion times. I've come to the conclusion that you have to, I think, in all actuality, Robbie was not out at all, obviously. Popped right up after it popped out. But you got to understand, we've talked about this on here before, the optics of the referee. I would say he should have let it go a little longer and tried to really check. You could see that Robbie definitely holds his thumb up, but at that particular time in that moment, Herb Dean thought Robbie was out, lifted his arm, and it went down. There's something to be said for the fact that Robbie didn't show a sense of urgency to get out of it. And when you got a guy like Ben Askren with his arm like that around your neck, dude, like, I just feel like at that high of a level, you can't take a fucking chance. He wasn't attacking Ben's hands, his forearms, nothing to try to pry it off. And you, contrary to popular belief, for all you people out there that haven't been put in that, you can get your fucking jaw broke in that, and you can be put to sleep from that. It's happened in the UFC before. I've gotten dizzy from being put in that submission at the gym. Like, it can make you pass out. So there's blame on both sides, in my opinion. On Robbie's side for not showing that he was okay. At that, by the time Herb stopped it, he couldn't see. He was more focused on getting ready to stop it than he couldn't see Robbie's thumb up underneath Robbie's chest like that. So with all that controversy, you can make an argument that fight's trash. It should be scrapped. But I mean, by the rules of the sport, it got stopped. Ben gets the win. And then with all the shit he said about Jorge Masvidal, calling him dumb, saying he can't fight, letting out all the rumors about, I wrestled George Masvidal at HET one time and beat him down and all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. A lot of guys frown upon that. And just to see how cool Jorge Masvidal played it, I mean, make no mistake about it, Ben Askren's a handful, even though he hasn't fought a lot of high-level competition. Like, if Ben gets a hold of you, he could take you down. I thought Robbie Lawler was the worst matchup for Askren because he's hard to take down and he can just club you to death, but how calm Masvidal was able to stay under all the pressure. The people were fucking standing, and then he puts his hands behind his back, gingerly starts to shuffle to his right, and then predictably, as Ben comes across the cage, what he did was he double pumped the flying knee. He led with his left knee. So a lot of guys like to throw flying knees. They do like a lunging knee where they don't really get maximum lift. They try to slide forward. And I like to do them to people's bodies. You slide out to your left like you're going to throw like a leg or body kick, and you kind of lunge in with the knee you want to hit somebody with. That's one way of doing the flying knee. And you only show the one knee. I think, obviously they said George was practicing. I think George knew that because of Ben's high-level wrestling prowess, he knew the minute he seen one knee, he was going to shoot on the opposite side of that knee to grab the other leg, right? Not get hit. And if you watch it closely, he throws the left and gets Ben he throws his left knee to get Ben to commit to his right leg, and then boom, brings the right leg up and hits him. And man, was that knee heavy. That was the heaviest flying knee I've ever seen. Besides when who's that dude, MVP, hit Evangelist to Cyborg Santos in the knee and crushed his skull. That knee was heavy, but Cyborg's been in so many fights, his dome was probably mush anyways. Dude, this knee hit Askren on the head, went straight through his head like his head wasn't there, and then hit Askren in the neck, and it looked like his neck pinched, like his head was pinched to the side of his trap. He was like, "Rrr," and then the referee could get there in time, and man, Jorge gave him 2 more to go. Supposedly, Ben had to be carried by security all the way out to the ambulance. And I even watched the post-fight interview. He's like, I don't even know what I don't even remember. Like, I don't remember. He doesn't remember what happened. It was brutal. You could make a case that was the greatest knockout of all time. Not only was the knockout itself one of the greatest knockouts of all time, it's a record. 5 seconds. Like Rogan said, it's technically 3 seconds, but it took the referee 2 seconds to get there and stop it. He was out before he even got hit with the 2 punches. But Masvidal is great. We've said it time and time on here over and over again that I've always said Masvidal is one of the most underrated fighters in all of MMA. And he's been proving it lately. He's mature now. Really getting it together, really got his eye on the prize. He's just fighting the best he's ever fought. And we could sit here and speculate, oh, well, what if he didn't land the flying knee? If he didn't land the flying knee and knock him out, you can make an argument that he would have had more of a fight on his hands. I mean, Ben at some point probably would have gotten a hold of him. And Masvidal would have had to prove how well-rounded he is. And Masvidal is very well-rounded. This, in my thing, is we didn't really get a good sample size. But one thing I will have to say is this. It doesn't matter, like, there's a stigma around the wrestler guys. Like, I got a friend, my buddy, shout out to DJ Ingham. He listens to the podcast. DJ will message me, and my buddy DJ was a really good wrestler in high school, and he went on to play sports, Division I sports, and whenever he texts me, there's this underlying, subtle, how would you say, there's a leniency towards a bias towards the wrestlers. Now, make no mistake about it. If someone came up to me and was like, oh, well, my kid likes MMA and they're thinking about doing it, what should you do? I would be like, try to find a gym that teaches everything, that has really good wrestling coaches, and start enrolling your kid into wrestling in school, because make no mistake about it, wrestling is the most important martial art to learn, especially if you're going to be an MMA fighter, because you could dictate where the fight goes. If a guy's better at striking you, you could take him down. And if you're afraid of a guy's submission game or a guy's top game offensively, or whether it's striking or submissions, you could use your wrestling to keep it on the feet. And I do definitely believe that there's the pressure cooker of the wrestling rooms and the things that they go through. I wrestled for 3 years when I was young, and I couldn't fucking stand the work that went into it. And obviously I went on to be heavily involved in other combat sports like MMA and train all the time and stuff like that. And I train with wrestlers at my gym. Well, when I first started training in Ultimate Athletics, my gym has two high level wrestling coaches, and they have tons of kids come down and wrestle. We wrestled all the time when I first got there, and I hated it, but it really helped me with my takedown defense because I like to strike. It is important, but you have to have all the skills to pay the bills. And if anyone really thought that Ben Askren was going to win the title just because he can wrestle, like all my buddies that wrestle go, oh, but what about that wrestling though? They think that just because the guy can wrestle, he's automatically going to win. Think of all the high-level fighters that have high-level wrestling ability that were champions. Every single one of the great champions that could wrestle, they all had other skills. GSP was good at everything. He would outstrike you. He would take you down, beat you up, submit you. He was one of the greatest well-rounded fighters of all time. John Jones, he has an amazing wrestling base, but his striking's high level, his jiu-jitsu's high level, his measurables. Cain Velasquez, striking high level gas tank, take you down, beat you up. When you're coming into the cage and all you could do is wrestle, Like, yeah, you're going to get a lot of wins off guys that have not as good wrestling prowess as you and might not be as athletic as you and things of that nature. But you're not going to win a title having no good skills. Like, if your wrestling's an A+, but your striking and your submissions are a fucking D+, you're not winning a title. Look at Damian Maia. Damian Maia's beat a slew of fighters and always has been relevant. But you want to know why he can't win the title? Is because all he could do is grapple. And you're going to come across guys that can do absolutely everything that you can't take down. Damian Maia couldn't beat Anderson Silva because you couldn't take him down. He was forced to box with Anderson Silva, and that fight was boring as hell. So, is Askren going to be a champion? I'll tell you right now, no way in hell will Ben Askren be the champion. Probably in any weight class. Because he's one of the few guys that's 100% a specialist. All he can do is wrestle. He can't box and strike his way out of a wet paper bag. You know, and a lot of these wrestlers, like, they got okay submissions, but that's because they're so good at controlling position. Every high-level wrestler, they win by what? Rear naked choke. It sounds like I'm shitting on wrestling, but I'm not. Like I said, wrestling is the greatest martial art you can learn for fighting, but you have to have more than that. You have to have more skills to pay the bills, and Askren can't do anything besides that. And you can't guarantee he's going to take every man down that he fights. Obviously, just as he just got fucking mollywopped. That knockout was fucking brutal, dude. And the questioning after that, when they're like, did he deserve the strikes on the ground? He goes, oh yeah, he deserved it. Deserved every single one. Or when Rogan goes, why the flying knee to Masvidal? And Masvidal goes, because he's a bum. Dude, his sound bites after were so good. I mean, you got to be well-rounded. Not to say if you ran the fight back like 100 times, could Ben Askren win a lot? Yeah, probably. I mean, who's to say that if that flying knee wouldn't happen, Ben couldn't have grabbed him and put him on the floor? But I don't know. I think that might be the greatest knockout of all time. With everything, the optics, the banter, all of that. And then the actual knockout itself. It was high level. It was up there. Love Masvidal. What's next for, Ben Askren? Honestly, Ben Askren's in a rough spot. Like, what's next for Ben Askren? I don't know. Ben Askren needs to take some time off. If I got fucking need like that, I'd probably quit. I really think Robbie's going to beat Colby Covington. I feel it in my bones. I think it's a bad matchup for Colby Covington because I don't think Colby Covington's going to take Lawler down. I think he's going to knock the fuck out. It's going to be a long time coming. People sleeping on Robbie Lawler like he's still not Robbie Lawler. I don't know. I'd have to look at the weight class. Maybe Ben Askren versus. I'd like to see Ben Askren versus Damian Maia. That a lot of people hate grappling. I think Ben Askren versus Damian Maia would be wild. The two best grapplers in that weight class. That's what I want to see. I think they're both in a position where they could fight each other. It'd be a good fight. Ben Askren versus Damian Maia, and then Jorge Masvidal. I think he deserves a title shot. He's alluded to fighting Conor McGregor if they don't give him a title shot. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if they'll grant him that. I think that fight could be fucking huge. I think Masvidal versus Conor McGregor can do numbers. People, if you watch the fight, you hear the people screaming. Everyone was standing up. People love horror. There was like over 100,000 people that night after, like, Wikipedia and Jorge Masvidal and shit, and people following him on Instagram and stuff. Like, he's the man, and he was so, like, humble, going, I can't cut a promo like you guys and all this stuff to Bisping and Chael Sonnen, but they're both like, stop saying you can't cut a promo, man. You're great on the mic and all this stuff. It's his swag, his attitude, dude. He's the street Jesus, man. He's the people's champ. So I think Masvidal needs to fight for the championship, but the problem is we have, the current champ, Kamaru Usman, who's just got all these ticky-tack injuries. Who knows when he's going to be healthy? So if I was Masvidal, I'd stay in the gym, get healthy, sharpen my skills, and I would just sit on the shelf for a little bit and see what happens. Honestly, if I was Masvidal, I would just go in and make a case like, listen, if he really wants a Conor McGregor fight, I'd say exactly what he said. I'd go to Dana and be like, yo, it's title shot or McGregor. That's where I'm at. I've beaten everyone you put in front of me. The two hardcore badass dudes he's knocked out back to back. I think he deserves a title shot. He said he'd fight Colby Covington if Colby somehow gets past Robbie, even though they're best friends. So we'll see. George is in the catbird seat, as the great Shannon Sharp would say, the catbird seat, the seat of advantage. He's in the right spot. Moving on to Amanda Nunes and Holly Holm. So my little brother messaged me and was like, "Oh, who do you got in Holly Holm versus Amanda Nunes?" And Holly Holm is always giving people trouble in fights, and she tends to fluster girls. I never count Holly Holm out of a fight. This is a girl that's one of the first well-rounded female MMA fighters. She stormed through everyone and ended up beating Ronda Rousey. I said if there was possibly an upset, I could see maybe Holly Holm winning a tight decision if she could stay on her horse, but she looked good all the way up until Amanda Nunes started finding range. Man, Amanda Nunes is nasty, huh? Amanda Nunes is a beast, and a lot of people just love to see her berserk on people, but the key to her winning in this fight, which is interesting against Holly Holm, was her face. She was just doing such a good job throwing Holly Holm off, and because she was doing a good job cutting her off, and then giving her subtle little feints and tells, and then finding her spots and blasting her, she ended up finishing her with a head kick, which was just, it was brutal. It was brutal. She sat her on her ass and did another one for, to ride home, but honestly, Amanda Nunes I think she's just starting to peak. Amanda Nunes is a beast. The only person I can see beating Amanda Nunes, there's a couple girls. In my opinion, I think it was the second fight, Valentina Shevchenko won the fight.